HD バージョン Wii U で買うと本当にでかい異常にド派手ハラハラドキドキひょえードキャーハンター大興奮
あれなんだ
スタッフのいや違う伸ばして言うてんねん伸ばして言うてんねん
The Switch is Nintendo's fastest selling console ever, and that's a huge deal. But will Monster Hunter game series, which heavily relies on the Japanese market, jump over? So let's talk about Monster Hunter on the Nintendo Switch. Monster Hunter Double Cross HD version might happen. It's not yet confirmed, we don't know it for sure, but it is looking really good so far. If we want to know if it comes for the Switch, we have to first of all look at the current situation. How good is the 3DS doing, and how well does Monster Hunter roll with it? Before Capcom decides to develop a game for a new console, they have to make sure to maintain Monster Hunter sales high on that new system. And if the Switch's sales look like it's possible to achieve their goal, which is usually around 2 million sold units for a game, then they might take the risk to develop it for the Switch. Monster Hunter has always been doing really well on the 3DS in Japan since it launched exclusively in 2014. And the thing with Monster Hunter always is the same. First of all, Capcom's targeted audience is solely Japan. And that's because, of course, it launches first in Japan, and also because Capcom is making a shit ton of money with Monster Hunter over there. They usually sell 3 times as many copies of the game in Japan than they sell here in the West. If you look at all the last Monster Hunter games, which each sold about 3 million units only in Japan, then you have almost 3% of the entire population in this country owns a fucking 3DS and Monster Hunter. It's just crazy. And that's different here in the West. 4 Ultimate sold over 1 million copies here, which was really good compared to 3 Ultimate, which didn't sell nearly as good even though it launched on both the 3DS and Wii U. And that 3 Ultimate sold worse had multiple reasons. No multiplayer support for the 3DS was one of them. On the other hand, it was possible to play online on the Wii U version. However, that didn't work out quite as planned since the Wii U was a disaster. It just sold about 12 million units in like 4 years globally, and most people in Japan can't afford buying a completely new console. Just for one game they wanted to play in better graphics. So they were sticking to the 3DS version because millions more had that system, but they didn't have a Wii U. It was just too expensive. Another big topic for the average Japanese gamer is mobility. They usually work a lot, and they don't have much time to chill at home playing video games on their TV. They want to be able to play on trains, maybe during lunchtime when they're at school or in the office. They want to play it when they're with their friends in a restaurant or at Starbucks or whatever they have there, and they want to bring their Monster Hunter with them. But don't get me wrong, there are some people who put mobility and to be able to have a portable system above everything else here in the West as well. But we're not nearly as crazy about mobility as Japan is. So basically they decided to avoid making this mistake again to develop 4 Ultimate exclusively for 3DS this time. And also with an online multiplayer support. And it worked out just fine. 4 Ultimate might be sitting at 4.1 million units, so they kept up the business with Monster Hunter Cross and Generations. And the same story for those games, a little over 4 million. And of course with Monster Hunter Double Cross, so shortly after the Switch release, they would bring it for 3DS as well. And where the sales weren't quite as overwhelming as the 2 previous games this time around, it was still a pleasant launch for Capcom as they were used to have it with the 3DS titles. Now that brings up the question, what about the Switch version for Monster Hunter Double Cross? Which would come out roughly 1 year after the 3DS version if they were to develop it. Well, it isn't unlikely at all. It actually happened a few years ago with 3 Ultimate. Because the 3DS version of it launched in 2012. And then they worked on the Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate HD version for the Wii U, which launched in early 2013, together in Japan and in the West. And that was due to the fact that the localization needed just about as much time as the HD port for the Wii U took them to make. Also, the 3DS is very cheap, especially if you compare it to the other consoles. It's cheaper as all the current home consoles, and it's cheaper than a Switch. There was a survey and 60% of the Japanese gamers thought that the Switch price was too heavy. But if you look at the launch price for the 3DS, it wasn't even that cheap as well. What's crazy about it is that the original 3DS launched with $250 in the US, compared to the Switch which launched with $300, roughly 6 years later. And that's just $50 more. And if you ask me, the Switch is nothing like the 3DS. Even if you consider the huge time gap of 6 years, the Switch is one hell of a powerful machine. But hold on, we're comparing it to a handheld here, which is being promoted as a home console by Nintendo. And that's kind of smart, because just think about it, would you rather pay $300 on just a regular handheld, or would you buy a home console, which is also portable, for $300? The second one, the portable home console, just sounds more attractive to me. And also because they needed a successor for the Wii U and they didn't want to compete with the traditional home console market, and they're actually doing pretty well with it. I think that the Switch is a great handheld. It's got power, it's got the right screen at 7.2 inch, 720p multi-touch. It's got the mobility. It's a portable console what the Japanese gamer wants. So it really has a lot of potential there. Well, we have Monster Hunter since early 2015, exclusively for 3DS here in the West. In Japan already since 2014. And a lot of people don't feel comfy with playing Monster Hunter on a 3DS, which I can totally understand. A lot of people like me grew up with Monster Hunter on a home console. Most of them with Monster Hunter on the Wii or on the Wii U. On the big screen, and yes, with the controller in your hands. And a lot of people still prefer playing in their living rooms on their huge TVs with a controller, over just staring at a tiny screen with ridiculous resolution over hours. And this particular gamer belongs to the minority in Japan. We really have two completely different cultures here in this case, which both consume the same product, and this creates this kind of problematic situation. But you guys have to understand Capcom. They, as a provider, they have the choice. Would they rather try to satisfy their Western audience, where they might sell around 1 million units, or would they try to listen to their own people over in Japan and satisfy their needs, which might get them like 3 million sales? And then of course the Japanese market's needs have priority over ours. And I feel like that is one major reason why it has always been kind of hard for Capcom to really arrive big time on the West with Monster Hunter. And I'm talking about millions of sold units. And I really think Monster Hunter as a franchise really has the potential to be globally successful. Well, at least more successful than they currently are with Monster Hunter here. And now that is exactly where the Switch comes into play. It is the first console which has the potential to satisfy a really huge audience of different gamers with different needs. Just think about it. Everybody who would be comfortable playing on the Switch, it would be the gamer who doesn't want to spend $400 on a home console. Check. The hardcore gamer who wants enough horsepower for appropriate gaming in HD. Check. The gamer who wants to look like an idiot playing 1-2 Switch. Probably. The busy gamer who wants to take his system on the go. Check. The old gamer who has problems with small screens and wants to play on a big TV. Check. The young gamer who wants a system to be able to play without TV or monitor because they don't have one. Check. The comfy gamer who wants to play his games with the controller sitting on his couch. Check. We have a huge audience here which can be targeted with just one system. And they managed to successfully launch it, worldwide even. The Switch is Nintendo's fastest selling console ever. Now, even though I see a big chance here, Nintendo wants to have a successor for the 3DS as well, which is supposed to run alongside the Switch. And I don't quite get that. I think that's a huge mistake. Spending more resources on an entirely different system only to be able to launch a product which is $100 cheaper than the Switch, to be able to just target that exact gamer who thinks that the Switch is too pricey. Like, for the first time ever, they have the chance to combine their resources, which were previously divided into 3DS and Wii U separately, in order to work together trying to make one product great, which is able to get to target such a wide audience of gamers. And because that would mean for us essentially that all the games for Nintendo and all the third-party games which are being developed for Nintendo devices would come out on one single system. That would help increase the number of sold game copies so much, because it's just so attractive for more third-party developers to make more games for the Switch, which again leads to more people buying the system because the games sell the consoles, and all the games will eventually come out on that single device. It's simply just worth spending your cash on, which brings more money again for Nintendo because more people buy the Switch. That I would rather give a discount on the system, on the Switch, make it, let's say, $250 or so. More people will go ahead and buy it, and more people will be able to afford it, and you spare your resources developing an entirely new product, the 3DS successor, which essentially competes with their own system. because the Switch is a handheld itself. It's just a terrible idea to release a 3DS successor. And I think Nintendo is trying to do this because they're seeing the 3DS sales, which are still running good, but this is just because the 3DS has so many great titles, a wide range of good games it is worth buying the system for. And not because it attracts a different gamer audience. It's just stupid. I mean, what the fuck? Why did they make the Switch a mobile console for in the first place when you're considering to launch a 3DS successor, which is another handheld? It just doesn't make any sense. But just imagine, guys, it would be so great if they had every game on one system. You don't have to buy two systems anymore like we were used to in order to play like the full range of Nintendo titles like Splatoon and Pokemon, for example. Previously, you had to buy the Wii U and the 3DS separately to play both games. Hell, I even bought the Wii U only for 3 Ultimate, which cost me like $400 back then. And then the price for the 3DS in order to be able to play 4 Ultimate, and if you combine both consoles, it was almost $600, and that is just the most stupid scenario which could possibly happen. So many people were like, dude, I love Monster Hunter, and I've played it for like, I don't know, multiple hundreds of hours, more than 1,000 hours, but I don't give a fuck about 4 Ultimate, because it's, I don't know, I just bought the Wii U for Monster Hunter and paid $400 for it, and now you want me to, basically you force me to pay $250 just to be able to play the next title on a handheld, and maybe I don't even want to play on a handheld anymore, but I don't have a choice. So either you roll with it and say goodbye to Monster Hunter, or, I don't know, you spend a crap ton of money, and I can totally understand these guys. So about the time where I'm making this video here, Capcom might have actually already decided what to do. And might have already begun working on the Switch HD port, we don't know. But we have to take a closer look at the sales to be able to see what's coming. Now the Switch is Nintendo's fastest selling console ever worldwide, and this title already helps a lot for potential Switch versions of Double Cross, might seem the perfect opportunity. What really matters first of all are the Switch sales in Japan. Now, 4 weeks after the initial Switch launch, Nintendo sold around 500,000 units in Japan. With that, it outsold the PS4 in Japan, which needed 7 weeks to hit 500,000 units. And it's still pretty early to say it will become as popular as the Wii was, and sell as many units as the Wii did, but nonetheless, it is looking really good. I think Capcom will take the risk and develop Double Cross HD version, just like they did 5 years ago with 3 Ultimate. And another thing is that the ports for the Switch are supposed to be really easy now because of the Switch's very developer-friendly architecture. And I remember when Capcom announced the 3 Ultimate HD version, these guys were so happy and proud. They were showing off how beautiful their game looked in HD on the Wii U, and it really did.
さあ、ということでございまして、最後の討伐は CM の後すぐ
Wii U のモンハンは HD バージョン Wii U で狩ると本当にでかい異常にド派手ハラハラドキドキひょえードッキャー HD で一狩り行こうぜモンスターハンタートライジ HD バージョンハンター大興奮
Hey.
I mean, they must be starving to develop a game for something else than the shitty 240p resolution, where you have to fight for every single fucking feature in order to make it, in order to not make the frame rate drop below 30 FPS. Because the 3DS literally has no CPU power whatsoever. I feel bad for the developers whose job is to optimize the game for the 3DS in order to make it run as smooth as possible, which they horribly failed with Generations, by the way. And also, literally, about all the game designers who make such an awesome job, they create such awesome monsters, weapons, and armors, and all that's left is pixel garbage. It must be really hard. I'm sure Capcom will bring the Switch port, and if it's not a Monster Hunter Double Cross this time, then it will be a Monster Hunter 5 or the next title which will launch. And then we just have to wait and see how well those titles sell on the Switch, and as well as keep an eye on Nintendo with their possible 3DS success and what they're doing there. And anyways guys, Monster Hunter will stay on Nintendo consoles, at least for now, I can tell you that much. I think this topic is very interesting, especially because it has such a huge impact on us diehard Monster Hunter fanboys. And so I decided to make this video, even though it was something different from the usual Monster Hunter content. And I know a lot of you guys are waiting for Gone Wrong 2. I'm working on Monster Hunter Gone Wrong 2 after this one here, so you can look forward to it. Well, my name is Chris, I'm from Team Darkside, this was Monster Hunter Switch Nerd Talk, and I catch you guys on the next Monster Hunter video. And until then, happy hunting!